We're back for another episode of the Summer Shift presented by US Steel, episode 4. We bring you now here on our Penguins social media channels, and we're joined by, after a few players stepped in the spotlight, today we get the head coach of the Pittsburgh Penguins, Mike Sullivan, taking some time from his now very busy offseason to join us. Sully, thanks so much for taking the time. Good to see you again.
Nice to see you, Josh.
Yeah, it's been a busy couple of days for you, Coach. I should say coach of the Penguins, coach of Team USA now, of the men's Olympic team in 2022. I know that's probably a lot to wrap your head around when you hear that out loud, but to kind of put it in your own words, what's it meant to you, and now having processed it here the last couple of days to know that you'll be behind the bench in Beijing in February?
Well, as I said to the media yesterday, it's really hard to articulate what it means. It's such a great honor to represent your nation in any capacity, but to be the head coach of the Olympic team, which in my mind is the pinnacle of the sport, is such a distinct honor. There's so many good coaches to choose from out there, and the fact that Stan Bowman and Billy Guerin and John Van Beesbrook and Pat Kelleher from USA Hockey have entrusted me with this responsibility. It just means an awful lot. And, I've had the privilege of participating in international events and representing the United States, both as a player and as a coach over the years. And I cherish every one of them. They're such great experiences. There's just something to be said for putting the USA sweater over your head, or standing behind the bench of a USA team and competing on behalf of your nation. It's something that's difficult to describe, but I'm really excited about it. I'm humbled by the opportunity. I'm grateful to everyone involved for entrusting me and showing the confidence in me to lead this team, and I look forward to working with a talented group of players.
It's really interesting too, Coach. I mean, you have the Penguins logo on you now. I know when you met the media at the Team USA logo, but there's a little bit of interchangeability between those two logos when it comes to Team USA. And I mean, you have Dan Bilesma in 2014, Herb Brooks in 2002, and of course the Miracle on Ice team that you spoke so highly of and influenced so many in 1980, and Badger Bob Johnson in 1976. To kind of join that fraternity in a way. I mean, I guess a subsequent fraternity of just Team USA coaches, but having the link to the Penguins. What's that mean? And what does that say to you, I guess, about some of the guys that have been behind the bench in Pittsburgh and how it's translated on the grander scope in the United States as far as hockey is concerned?
Well, it's humbling to be part of that discussion and be part of that fraternity. Those coaches that you mentioned are in elite company, and they built such strong legacies in the sport, and so to be part of that fraternity, or to be part of that discussion is humbling from my standpoint. I think the Penguins have such a storied tradition in hockey, both in the NHL with what they've accomplished, and by winning Stanley Cups and having some of the greatest players of all time play for them, but also what they've accomplished on the international stage with players from different countries, but in particular, as it relates to coaches, with American coaches, and the guys that you mentioned, Herb Brooks, Badger Bob, Danny Bilesma. These guys are elite coaches. They're guys that I've looked up to over the years, and I couldn't be more humbled to be part of that conversation. And like I said, I'm excited about the opportunity. It's such a unique experience, the Olympic experience. I had the good fortune of being an assistant coach in Torino in 2006 when Peter Laviolette was the head coach, and I look back on that experience with such fond memories, and I anticipate what's to come here in Beijing in February, and I just can't help but get excited about it.
One thing you said yesterday when you were meeting with the media after being announced officially as the head coach of Team USA, and I kind of wanted to dovetail what you just mentioned about being there in 2006. You said one of your greatest memories was being in the Olympic Village, going and getting meals. Was there anyone in particular you remember who you were sitting next to or sitting across from or cross paths with, where you struck up a conversation or just saw in person and were kind of, taken a little aback by the relationship that was able to build as a result?
There's no one person that stands out, but I just remember uh, the Olympic Village, and what the way it was, the way the logistics were set up in Torino. Every country had their own respective areas, and they had your little American flags, for example, on the tables.
Yeah.
And so we had our own little section, and Canada had their own little section with Canadian flags on the table. So you would go in a cafeteria style and grab lunch or whatever, or grab breakfast, and you would sit at one of the tables with the American flags on them. And you might sit next to a skier or a speed skater, or and I just remember striking up conversations with different athletes. Oh, what sport are you participating in? Well, I'm a downhill skier, or and I was fascinated by their stories, and just asking questions about their competition, and you can feel the energy and the passion and the excitement in all of these athletes. In a lot of those sports, you know those athletes, they prepare for 4 years for the pinnacle of the sport, and that's the Olympics. And so
Right.
their investment in that Olympic experience is tangible, and I just love that experience. I thought it was so great to just have the opportunity to have casual conversation with athletes that I would never come across,
Right.
because we all live in our own little worlds, in our respective sports. We're in our hockey bubble, but I'm sure skiers are in their skiers bubble, and that's kind of how we go about our business every day. So the Olympic Village kind of offers or affords this unique opportunity to kind of interact with other athletes from other sports, and I just thought it was so cool.
That's a cool peek behind the curtain. That definitely something you wouldn't necessarily think about, but you're right. Everyone's in their own little pods, and then you kind of get planted in your own entire giant group to interact and mingle. And that definitely is probably one of the cooler aspects behind the scenes of the Olympics. And you mentioned the little mini American flags there. And I don't know, for some reason, when you said that, I thought back to the Miracle on Ice of all those shots of people waving the flags and going nuts after the U.S., of course, upset the Soviet Union and then beat Finland to win gold in Lake Placid. And you mentioned that recently, when you were talking about your new hire as the U.S. hockey head coach for 2022, that you were at a Boston University alumni event and crossed paths with Jim Craig and Dave Silk and Mike Eruzione. And obviously, those guys are legends as far as USA Hockey is concerned. But it got me thinking, Boston University, legends. You and I have discussed a certain person quite a bit as far as someone who has an impact on you. And I'm wondering if you've had any conversations since the news has come out with Somerville's own Jack Parker and what his reaction was to seeing one of his guys be named the head coach of Team USA.
Well, I haven't spoken to him about the Olympic opportunity that I've been given here, but I did happen to see Coach Parker on Monday as well. As you can imagine, he was there, and it's such a great event. The BU alumni, the hockey alumni, as you and I have spoken about frequently, is a really great fraternity, and there's a lot of camaraderie. And there were players from the 70s and the 60s that were playing in the golf tournament. There were players from my generation that were playing in the golf tournament, guys like myself and Joe Sacco, that's the assistant coach for the Bruins. Him and I played the same foursome. Scott Young, who works for the Penguins and in our development department, he played. John Cullen was there, who was a former Penguin.
Wow. Yeah.
That's part of the BU fraternity, and Coach Parker is kind of the common denominator because he coached all of us, and so he happened to be there, and it's kind of neat to think about that. Think about how many generations Coach Parker has coached, he coached BU for 40 years. And so, he coached Mike Eruzione and Dave Silk and Jim Craig and Jack O'Callahan in the 70s. He coached me in the late 80s. He coached some Jack Eichel in the early 2000s,
Right.
so it's or the late or the mid 2000s, I should say,
Right.
right? Anyway, it's really cool to be part of that kind of a fraternity, the BU alumni, and they were all there. I didn't have the conversation with Coach Parker, but I'm sure I will here in short order.
I would think so. And as you mentioned, just a lot of different generations. Even the Nick Boninos fall under the Jack Parker umbrella as far as the coaches, players, I should say, that he's coached. So it's
Evan Rodriguez was playing in the tournament.
There's enough. Okay.
Charlie McAvoy and Matt Grzelcyk that are former players. So guys that are still playing in the NHL were playing in the tournament as well. So
yeah,
it's so cool to have the young generation of guys that are still playing, and then the old timers that played in the 60s that are now playing golf and retired, and then everyone in between. It's such a cool fraternity.
I think what it basically comes down to, between the USA Hockey announcement and the golf outing that you had and everything, with the expansion draft last week, the NHL draft, it's been a busy couple weeks for you, but I can't help but think, you and I were speaking before we started this thing, that there was something pretty big in between all of that. You and your wife, Kate, 30 years. First of all, congratulations, 30 years of marriage. Where does that rank? And be careful with this answer, Coach. Where does that rank as far as everything that took place over the last week and a half for you?
I would think it stacks up there pretty high, As I said to her yesterday, I can't believe she put up with me for this long. So she's she's the rock of our family. She holds it all together when I'm doing what I inevitably do as the coach of the Penguins. As you know too well, Josh, it's a all-encompassing job. It's 24/7. You never shut it off, and it's nice to have a partner like my wife that can hold the family together and make sure everybody gets what they need throughout our children's lives. They're in their young adulthood now, but as you can imagine, they're still around an awful lot, and they still lean on us for a lot of things. So she's always there to pick up the pieces for us.
Well, congratulations on 30 years. That's regardless of her putting up with you or not. That's a pretty big accomplishment for staying married for that long and having a successful relationship. So congrats on the USA Hockey head coaching position. And I know a big season awaits for the Penguins. But before we kind of turn our attention to that, I did want to ask, Marshfield, Massachusetts, that's the off-season home for you. I don't think there's any secret about that. I was looking up some stuff about Marshfield, just as far as what there is to do there, where it is located with respect to Boston. And I came across a pretty impressive hometown list as far as guys and women that are from Marshfield. So I wrote a few down here. I'm going to ask you, if you could hang out with one of these guys that I'm about to name, who would it be and why? We got Steven Tyler, the lead singer of Aerosmith, Steve Carell, no introduction needed, a guy you know well, Jeremy Roenick, and Jeff Corwin, the Animal Planet fame. Any of those guys that you would spend some time with if you had the choice? And I don't think the other three would feel slighted.
Well, I'd love to hang out with any one of them. That's for sure. I was teammates with Jeremy Roenick, so I've already hung out with JR, so he's off the list.
Okay, fair.
As much as I love him, and he's a vibrant personality and a whole lot of fun to be around. I would probably say Steven Tyler. I would think he would be an interesting guy to get to know. I've always appreciated his music growing up. I was a big fan of Aerosmith, and he certainly transcends generations. So he would be the guy I think that would be that I would love to have lunch with. I can only imagine he would have some really interesting stories and be a fascinating guy to have a conversation with.
Yeah, I think the stories would be a little different than the ones you probably had in the Olympic Village if you were sitting down with Steven Tyler.
I'm sure.
So obviously Marshfield's the home in the off season. What's a typical day like for you, Coach, as far as not in season for the Penguins, but is now, here we are less than 2 months till training camp, kind of starting to get things back in order. What's a typical day like to get things in motion towards September and then the season obviously beginning in mid-October?
Well, we're obviously in the planning stages. We just got our schedule within the last week. And so, I've been looking at that schedule and started plan out, excuse me, our season. I do that every year and go month to month and, build in days off and practices and workloads and all of that. It's kind of a 40,000-foot look at our schedule and trying to plan all the details on a week to week, month to month basis so that we can manage workloads and get proper rest and things of that nature. Not that we don't tweak that schedule along the way as we go,
Sure.
but we set that schedule and we set that schedule from the beginning of the season to the very end of the season now. One of the other things we always do as a staff is we go through a due diligence process where we will meet for 4 to 5 days as a staff, and that'll be coming up at the end of August, where we prepare for the next season. But as part of that process, we look at the past season. We look at our team and how we played. We try to assess our overall game. Are there areas where we think we need to get better? How can we be a better coaching staff? What are we good at that we need to continue to work at, and where are the areas of improvement? We look at the league and some of the best practices, and we kind of go through the league and look at other teams. What are they doing that we're not? Is there anything that we should be adding to our team game that we don't have? Does it make sense? Does it not? We go through that process in detail, and so we're going through that process right now. So a lot of that is just assigning responsibilities to each coach, and then we work through our video coaches to get the necessary video, and then all of us will on our own time comb through all the video and look for examples of good things, not so good things that we want to put into our presentations when we meet as a coaching staff. So that will take place between now and the end of August for when those meetings occur. When we come out of those meetings, we'll come out of those meetings with a definitive game plan on what Penguins hockey is going to look like for that season. And so we're in the middle of that process right now. I have daily conversations with Hexie about the personnel decisions that Hexie's making on behalf of our team right now, whether it's through free agency or possible trades that are on the table or things of that nature. So that's a lot of phone conversations that I have. And then in between, it's taking the dogs for a walk and playing golf and doing some of that fun stuff to try to take advantage of some downtime.
Definitely got to enjoy it while you can. You said the schedule and just kind of working through things on that front. And I know from the broadcaster perspective, when that schedule came out, it was almost like a sigh of relief. And I've heard you say it, a lot of your players say it, a lot of people around the league say it over the last year, that people, professional athletes thrive so much on routine. And to now see this schedule, I know it's a shorter summer, but to see a season starting in first couple weeks of October, ending in April, that seems to be more of the routine from the NHL, from the hockey perspective. How much of a relief, I guess, is that side of things from your end with getting ready for a new season, knowing that at least on the surface, everything looks a bit more normal, especially compared to what looked like last year when it was just a gauntlet that you guys had to run through in a 4.5-month stretch, essentially?
Yeah, I think we're all longing for a sense of normalcy, and the schedule is for me is that first inkling that it's on the horizon, right? So it's nice. I think we all want to get back to the normal schedule, the normal time frame when hockey's was supposed to be played, and so we're certainly looking forward to that aspect of it. You are correct that we're such creatures of habit, and we're we're victims of our own routine, I think, and that's an important aspect, I think, of being a professional athlete and being part of a team. And we try to build routine into our daily workflow because the players tend to thrive on that, and they can build their individual routines around the team routine. And so we try to be predictable for our players in that regard, so that they can build their individual routines that's important to them, that helps them be at their best. But to have to see the schedule and to have a start date and an end date that's as close to the NHL season that we're all accustomed to is a welcoming thought, and we certainly look forward to that.
So September 27th against Columbus, the preseason starts. October 12th in Tampa, the regular season will start for the Penguins. Coach, we got 2 more segments for you, and then we're going to let you get back to whatever's on the docket here for the summer day ahead. First of all, the next segment we like to do is fan questions. So we have 2 for you. First, coming from your friends at Penguins on Twitter. They want to know what you would prefer. If you'd rather have lightning speed or super strength?
That's a good question, because both of them, I think, are attractive as far as trying to gain a competitive advantage in whatever endeavor it is you're pursuing. I would probably say lightning speed.
Fair enough. And then the next question and final one is from Aditya. This is an interesting one. Another would you rather. I think from the coaching perspective, she wants to know, would you rather have telekinesis, which is the ability to move things with your mind, or telepathy? I'm probably saying that wrong. The ability to read minds. So would you rather have the ability to move things with your mind or read minds? From a coaching perspective, I feel like sometimes you probably, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you probably want to move things, right?
I would think so, because I would think you'd have the ability to have more of an influence or an impact by having the ability to move things with your mind. So that would be my choice. The other one would be fascinating, though.
Yeah. And what about your one-on-one chats with some players? That might take you down an interesting path.
Well, it's funny, because I think part of the coaching process, at least for me, is one of the things I always try to do is put myself in the shoes of the player, or try to put myself in the mind of the player, and say, what is that player thinking, and how should I react as a coach to help that player in any way, so that he can be at his best. So sometimes I think I'm on the right track there, but other times not so much.
It's interesting you mentioned that, Coach, because I remember I was thinking about some stuff when the USA Hockey announcement came out. And I had talked to Brian Burke about you and his dealings with you when he first came on board. And Berkey mentioned that one of the things that he really respects about you is, from a coaching perspective, you would never ask a player to do something that you hadn't done yourself as a player, or you hadn't gone through and experienced yourself, and that automatically earns the respect and attention from the player perspective. So when you're formulating that kind of a relationship and that kind of conversation, how important is that to you, to have that kind of dialogue and that kind of straightforwardness, as far as you've been there, you've gone through it, and they, I guess, can observe that and react to that from their own perspective as well?
Well, I just think it's important to be transparent with the players. I think players they react positively to honesty, and the conversations aren't always easy, but I do think it's the best approach. And so, I try to communicate with each one of our players on our team as often as I can. I try to define expectations for each one of our players, and define roles and how they can help the Penguins win as best I can, so that players aren't guessing. And I think that's an important aspect of coaching. I think that's one of the most important responsibilities that I have as the head coach, is making sure I define those expectations, because in turn, by defining those expectations, I'm steering or controlling the identity of the group, as far as allowing us to play to our strengths to give us the best chance to be successful. So every guy's going to be on our roster, is going to be in our lineup for a reason, because they bring a certain something to the table that's going to help us win. And everybody's a little bit different, and that's what makes great teams great. And so it's my job to make sure that I help them understand what those expectations are so that they can live up to them. And so that's what I try to do. I pride myself in communication, and I pride myself in candor. And I just think it's an important aspect of coaching, and it's something that I believe strongly in.
And certainly has resulted in a lot of success for you, both with the Penguins and obviously beyond. As we move into our final segment here on the summer shift, I mentioned this to the players that have been on before you, but I feel like it's a rite of passage to be associated with the Pittsburgh Penguins and have a superstition based on how your team operates, from entering the ice surface for the start of a game to anything that could happen in between or after or before. But from your perspective, are there any superstitions or one in particular that you have?
I'm not a real superstitious guy. If we're winning some games, especially at home, and I'm driving into the game, I usually listen to certain types of music that I like, that I have on my iPhone, whether it's through Spotify or whatever playlists. And if we're winning games, I tend to listen to the same playlist going in. So that's one. It's not always the same playlist, but if we have some success, I stay with it. I try to ride it for as long as I can to see if we can keep it going. So I guess that might be a small superstition. It's not nearly some of the superstitions that some of our players have, but that's one thing that I could probably point out to you.
Yeah, no, I would say that checks the box on that front. Excuse me. Next question is, what is something you can't live without, or something of great significance that you possess?
I would say my family. For me, that would be what jumps out at me the most. My family means a lot to me, and we're very close and supportive, and so it'd be tough to live without them. That's for sure. The other thing that, on a lighter note, that I would have trouble living without is, I know you guys are well aware that I like to have a good cigar every once in a while.
I thought that
That's
might be the answer.
and that's something that I probably have it a little more often than I should, but I do enjoy a cigar, and so I partake in a nice cigar fairly frequently. Let's just leave it at that.
Fair. Okay. I think we all remember the great shot of you and your father playing outside, and I think it was chess, right? You were playing chess and having cigars.
Cribbage.
Cribbage. Okay. Cribbage.
Cribbage, yeah.
All
Yeah, my
right.
dad was a big cribbage player. He loved it. So yeah, and maybe that's something my father handed to me. My brothers are the same way, by the way. It's not just so, like my father always said, they don't grow up like the neighbors. I guess we're a chip off the old block.
Not a bad thing to be, as far as how you've spoken about your father. You obviously have been very busy, but are there any vacations, any type of trips you have planned between now and the start of the season, or are you just straight to Massachusetts to Pittsburgh and then showtime?
We have no vacations planned. We have a big event coming up in our family. My daughter's getting married in a couple of weeks, and so that's been an exciting time for us and our family. We don't have vacations planned for this summer. I've got a lot of work ahead of me over the next month or so, with both the Penguins and getting ready for the season, but also the Olympic team, and I'll be spending a significant amount of time on those two things. So there's no vacations for the Sullivans this summer.
This one I have really not done a good job of with the first three players, so I'm hoping to redeem myself here with you. I need two truths and a lie, and I don't want to put the pressure on you, but all three guys that have gone before you have stumped me on this. Granted, it's not that hard. I'm not that smart, but if you have two truths and a lie that you could throw at me, and I, of course, have to guess the lie out of the three.
Oh man, two truths and a lie. Let me think. I got one right off the bat. So my older brother and I participated in a member guest golf tournament a couple of weeks ago at my home club here in Boston. My older brother's a pretty good golfer, and we won our tournament this year.
Well, that seemed to come pretty naturally. I'm going to say that's the truth.
Well, that's great because I fooled you. We did not win.
I suck at this.
We were in first place going into the last day.
The funny part is you didn't even have to come up with two other things there. I already failed on the first one.
All right, what's the final thing?
Okay, final thing is a recommendation of something that you are currently into. It could be TV show, a book, a movie, a song, podcast, a workout, anything like that you want to throw out there as something that people should check out.
I'll give you two.
Okay.
So there's a Netflix miniseries called The Last Kingdom.
All right.
That I watched recently that I really liked.
Okay.
I thought that one was kind of cool. Although my wife didn't like it because there's a little bit of violence in it, but
okay.
It's kind of on the Game of Thrones, that similar fashion.
Yeah.
But really good. I really liked it. And then the other one is I like to read in the off season. I'm reading a book right now. I don't know if you can see it.
Oh yeah. Okay.
It's called The Playmaker's Decision. And this is Dr. Zakowski, who works with our team. It's a sequel to his first book called The Playmaker's Advantage. And it's really about athlete cognition. It's about decision making, how and the science of it behind it. It's really, really fascinating read. I don't know if there are any young coaches out there that are trying to improve their coaching acumen, but I would recommend those two books. I've already read the first one, but I'm in the middle of reading his sequel here, The Playmaker's Decision, and it's they're great books.
So Playmaker's Advantage, Playmaker's Decision during the day, and then when you wind down, you watch Last Kingdom, and you're following the Mike Sullivan routine.
There you go.
Sounds like a good way to wind down the summer, Coach.
If you could find a half an hour to have a cigar in there, then you're really on my routine.
There you go. Maybe some golf, right? Early in the morning to start. Yeah. There you go.
Golf is nice. I usually have the cigar when I take my dogs for a walk.
Okay. All right. That's a pretty good day.
I have two black labs, so we take them down the beach a lot. We live near the beach here in the Boston area, so we take them down the beach a lot, and it's a great walk, and it's a great place to have a cigar at the same time.
I believe it. Yeah, the smell of the ocean breeze with the cigar is probably tough to beat, I would imagine.
You got it.
Obviously it's been a strange off season in the sense of the expansion draft and retooling the roster a little bit, and just the chaos of what has become NHL free agency with all the signings and all the movement. As you have a chance to kind of talk to the fans here and address them a little bit, any kind of message that you have just going into the rest of this off season, heading towards training camp for them, as the Penguins, are, I'm sure, very eager to get back on the ice and kickstart this 2021-2022 season?
Well, we're just excited about the team that we have, and the challenges with a team like ours that's contending or trying to contend year in and year out is to a certain extent sometimes you become a victim of your own success, whether it's players having individual success and then they reach free agency and now it forces our management team to have to make some really difficult decisions because of the salary cap and the business of the game. We're trying to put the best possible team on the ice that gives us the best chance to win another Stanley Cup, and that's the goal, and that's something that we talk about internally all the time. That has not changed. We're going to continue to try to win. We believe we have a group of players that can contend, and we're excited about the opportunity we have in front of us. And, we thought we had a strong season last year. Obviously disappointed that we didn't have success in the playoffs. But having said that, we believe we have a real competitive team. So we're looking forward to the opportunity. We're looking forward to getting back in the ice. We're looking forward to having some normalcy and having a packed building again at PPG Paints. There's nothing like that experience. It's just not the same without the fan engagement, and so we're real excited about that as well. So there's a lot to be excited about, and I believe that we have the makings of a real competitive team, and I can't wait to get on the ice with these guys.
Well, it's been great to get a chance to catch up with you, Coach. I know it's been a couple months, but good to see you again and talk to you. And congratulations again on, I'm going to list them in order of importance here just in case your wife sees this. Your anniversary, your daughter's upcoming wedding, Team USA, and then, of course, good luck in the preparation, everything ahead with both the Olympics and, of course, the Penguins for the upcoming season. Congrats again, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in person this year.
Thanks, Josh. It's my pleasure joining you today.
All right, that is Penguins head coach Mike Sullivan, also the head coach of Team USA in the 2022 Olympic Games in Beijing. He has been my guest on the Summer Shift, Episode 4, presented by U.S. Steel. We'll catch you all next time.